Hello, welcome to this video on MonoBehaviour methods. So we hinted at the idea that these two things that came predefined in our class are called methods. We hinted at that in the last video. And let's talk a bit more about what that means. So fields are just kind of single containers that store some data. They store numbers in this case. Float numbers, floating point numbers that have decimals. Now methods are not the same. Methods are actions that you can do. So start is an action. It's a often they're verbs. This isn't really a verb. Start, it is a verb. So often they're actions that the game will perform when you want them to. And so start is a mono-behavior method that gets called automatically at a certain point when the game is playing. Update is another method that gets called automatically when the game is playing. Here's a few more. So if I go down underneath update and I write AWA for awake, it'll give me the suggestion and press tab and it'll fill it in. So private doesn't need to be there, but it can be there, same as here in front of update and in front of start. Private is, it's a good thing to add, but you don't need it. So awake is another one that gets called at a certain point during the gameplay. And the last one I want to point out is on enable. So this is another one that gets called at a certain point during the gameplay. So for example, if I go inside start, I can write debug, capital G, capital D, dot log, capital L, and open the brackets, and let's put a string inside, so that's between these two parentheses. I'm going to put in start. Now at the end of most lines, we're going to put a semicolon to say this line is done. So copy this syntax exactly in start, and let's go back to Unity and go to the console, and now press play. And we should see a message get printed here that says in start. Excellent. So what I want you to do for a challenge is go put a debug.log in awake, in on enable, in start, and in update. And I want you to determine what is the order that these different methods are called in, and what are they used for. So what does update do? What does awake, on enable, and start do? And see if you can figure out the order that they're called in. I'll let you pause and try that. All right, welcome back. So hopefully you had some success putting debug.log in all these different methods. So I'm going to start by copying this debug.log in start. I'm going to put it in update. I'm going to change that to update. Okay, put this one in awake. I'm going to go in awake and put this one in on enable and say in on enable, just like that. So it's just some text to indicate which one is being called. I'm going to save it, and let's go back to Unity and press play and see what happens in the console here. And I don't know if you caught that at the beginning. There was actually a few different messages about awake and on enable, but now I only see updates. And here's a timestamp, 43, 44, 45. Right, that's happening over and over again. So awake actually, or update rather, actually gets called every frame. So there's normally maybe between 20 to 60 frames every second while the game is playing. And so this update function is being called that many times every second. So I'm going to stop it, go back to Visual Studio, and let's comment out in update. So that way we don't see that clogging up the screen. And let's go and just see what start, awake, and on enable do. So let's go back to Unity and we'll press run. And we should see 3 messages. So one is awake, one is on enable, and one is start. And interestingly, it goes awake, and then on enable, and then start. So you can think about this as being alphabetical order. That's one way to remember it. So A and then O, or maybe E, and then S. That's the order that they're called in. But it's good to know this on enable is actually called every time this movement script is enabled. So let me disable it by unchecking the box and check it again. Now onEnable gets called again, but awake and start both only get called once. So I can uncheck and check over and over again, and onEnable gets called over and over again, but not awake and start. They're just called once. So that's a little bit of some nuance here for how these different methods work. Okay, some other ones to just be aware of. So in addition to update, there's also something called fixed update. Okay, so fixed update is a physics update function. There's also one called late update. Okay, late update happens after the regular update function. And we also have on disable to go with onEnable, so that gets run whenever the checkbox is unchecked. And I think that's all we're going to look at here for these MonoBehaviour methods. But the point is that these are going to be helpful, especially to know the finer details of how they work. Once our games start getting a lot more complex, it'll be helpful to know the order these are called in and how they work. So debug.log is a really good tool to be remembering these things and testing them. And so that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to start looking at actually making the game do something. So we'll see you there.